So my lesson is a vocabulary lesson for first grade students. And it's a 15-minute lesson. The classroom information is there are a total of 16 regular education students, 4 504 students, and 2 special education students. The teacher will use sentence level context as a clue to the meaning of a word or phrase. The purpose and importance is to determine and clarify the meaning of unknown and multiple meaning words and phrases based on grade 1 reading and content, choosing flexibility from an array of strategies. And this is RL.1.4. So yesterday we used our knowledge of frequently occurring affixes to interpret the meaning of a word. And today we will learn how to use sentence level context as a clue to the meaning of a word or phrase. And in the future, we will identify frequently occurring root words and their inflectional forms. So to start this lesson off, the teacher will begin the lesson by writing different words of the classroom objects on the board. So there will be multiple words like stapler, desk, chair, pencil, eraser, like classroom objects like board, printer, timer, like words like different classroom objects is what we're doing. So I'll write all the objects on the board, on a whiteboard, and I will explain to the students that they have to work in groups to look up the words and find the definition of the words in a dictionary. So I will pass those out. They'll get their notebooks and their pencils out, and I will observe them as they work in their groups to figure these out. And they're going to be in groups of 4. And I'm going to evaluate each group and make sure they are looking all the words up and staying on task as they do this, because they have to kind of do this, and this is kind of like a pre-part before the actual lesson. So this shouldn't take longer than 5 minutes for the students to actually do. So they're going to be looking up the words in the dictionary and writing the definitions out in their notebook. And this notebook they are going to be using to study it. So it is their study sheets with the definitions. And so they need to make them neat, and it will have to be neatly written out, and they'll have to be able to read them so they can study them at home. So that was the motivation. That's the first thing we're doing as a part of the lesson. And the review of the lesson is the teacher will go over the words and definitions on the board with the class. So after they look them up themselves, I'm going to get on the board and I'm going to write each definition out, and they're going to be able to check their notebook and get their red pens out and go through theirs and make sure their definitions exactly match mine, because my definitions are the ones that are going to be on the test. So it is going to be up to them for them to get their right materials for their test in the future, because if they don't, they're just going to be out of luck. You know, this is the one time we're going to be going over the definitions a lot in class, but this is the one time I'm actually going to write them out. So they'll be able to see, like, this is the exact definition that's going to be on the test. So they need to make sure they're doing that and participating. So when I'm writing the definitions on the board, I'm going to ask them a few questions. Like, I'm going to pull sticks or draw popsicle sticks, or ask the class, like, as a whole class, you know, what is the definition of an eraser? Like, what did your group find out was the definition of pencil or stapler? Different questions like that to get them to talk to me, and I will like say, oh, that's correct, and I'll write it as they say it, or I'll be like, that's not quite the definition I was looking for, so let's try to do something different. So we're going to be using the smart board and oral responses for that, and that's going to be a whole class activity. And that's going to be a whole class, review. So my procedure is the teacher is going to begin doing the choose and chat activity by giving the students 8 objects, 2 bags, paper, crayons or markers, and pencils. So this activity is really cute. The students are going to get into pairs and distinguish who's going to be student 1 and student 2 for the activity. So they're going to be partners. And I'm going to be able to, the teacher is going to place the bags of objects in the center and provide each student with paper. So I have a student 1 bag and a student 2 bag. And for this activity, the students are going to have to get in pairs, figure out which one of them is going to be student 1 or student 2. And so student 1 is going to get their student 1 bag. They're going to look inside the bag. They're going to look at the objects. And I do have a few objects in here. A few objects in the bag. Then they're going to look at the bag. They're going to pick one object. So in my bag, I have a pencil. So I'm not going to take it out. Like if I was student 1, I wouldn't have took it out. I would have just looked, and I was like, okay, a pencil. So I'm going to look at student 2, and I'm going to tell them wooded, yellow, pink, sharp. I'm going to use descriptive words, and these are going to be vocabulary words. Obviously, we're not going to put a desk in the bag or a chair or big objects like that, but the little objects that are like classroom, like markers, pencils, stapler, anything that can fit in this little bag. It's going to be good review of vocabulary words. So so student 2, I would say the definition of a pencil, and student 2 would relay back to me and say, a pencil. And they would, they said, I think that's scissors. I said sharp. So they missed the whole wooden, yellow. So they didn't listen to the wooden part. So it could be yellow scissors. They don't know. So they're just thinking the sharp. So if they said scissors, student 1 would say, that's not correct. And they would leave it in the back. But if they would have said pencil, then what student 2 would have done, so if the object is identified, the student will remove it from the bag. So student 1 would take the pencil out of the bag, and student 2 would then get a piece of paper. They would get a piece of paper, and they would fold it into fourths. So we would do 1, and then fold it again. And this is cardstock, so it's kind of hard to fold. And they're gonna write the name of the object. On here. So pencil is going to be the first square. So student 1 has 4 objects and student 2 has 4 objects in their bag. So they're going to write the descriptive words for it, and they're also going to put it in their own words how they would describe their pencil. So they would put the descriptive words for the pencil on it. So then they're going to reverse. Student 2 will do the same thing for student 1, and they will continue until both of they have 8 objects. Like all 4 have been identified for student 1, and all 4 have been identified for student 2. So that'll be all objects for that. Oops. So as they're doing this, I'm going to be walking around the room and observing each pair, making sure they're getting it right. If they're stuck, like say student 2 would be stuck on that, be like, I'm not really sure what that object is. I may go by and help them try to get there, because this activity is obviously not supposed to take too long of a time, but it is 8 objects and they have to go back and forth with each other until all objects are out of the bag. So it's a fun little game for them to be hands-on and actually doing it. And so they will remember what a pencil is. They'll remember what stapler is. They will remember those things. So, and they'll actually do it, and then they can actually draw out the image if they want to by their name or whatever. So I could have drew a pencil right here and then put the descriptive words. Whatever I wanted to do with this activity, we could do it as much or less as we wanted, just as long as it had the word and the descriptive words on it. So, for the closure of the lesson, I'm going to allow the students to stay into partners and find the synonyms for their vocabulary words in a thesaurus. So now they're going back to their desk, they're going to stay in partners. Student 1 and student 2, the partners that they already were in. Now they're going to get the words that they found and the other few words that were not in the bag. They're going to look in the thesaurus and go beside their actual definitions in their notebook and write the synonyms for the words. This way, when they're studying, they can say, oh, I may not remember what a desk is, but I know the synonym may be table. Desk and table, basically the same thing, just another name for it. So on their test, they may say, I'm not sure what desk is, but I do remember that the synonym for it was table. And then they think of what a table is, and they're like, oh, I know, that's a desk. So I'm going to let them think about those synonyms so it draws it together so they can remember those vocabulary words very well. And I'll be asking them questions like, what is the synonym for the word notebook? What is the synonym for the word chair? Just basic questions that are going over, what the synonyms are. For homework, the students are going to study their vocabulary words. And the HOTS questions I'm going to ask are, what are some synonyms for the word desk? How would you define the word classroom? That one is a pretty good question because, everybody is going to have a different definition for it, and then afterward we would find the real definition in the dictionary and see who's closest to it, and then they could list the vocabulary words in alphabetical order. And so students who need accommodations will be given access to functional level material, bigger print thesaurus and dictionary, and visual demonstrations. The early finishers can get on learninggamesforkids.com and play Big Cat Hang Mouse. That is a very cute vocabulary and spelling game. and you can set it to where you have your own words in there, and the students can play together on their Chromebooks. Students needing remediation will be allowed to make note cards for their vocabulary words and study. And students who want extra practice can study their flashcards with a partner. So students who need extra practice can get their notebooks out and make flashcards, because some people learn that way. I know I've always had to make flashcards for all my definitions if I'm actually learning like vocabulary or anything like that. I always do vocabulary so I can flash them back and forth to myself. So that would be a good thing to do for student buddies who needs extra help learning these vocabulary words. So assessment, I'll do observation, the quiz at the end of the week, and immediate feedback and peer evaluation. And the reflection, I'm going to make sure the students, let me see. The students met the objectives by learning their vocabulary words. The bag activity really allowed the students to visualize their words with the definition and the object itself. And it also was a hands-on that helped them to remember. And I think it done well for this grade level in this class because it was an easy thing. It was just a very good vocabulary lesson to get them their words very, so they can remember the words. And I feel like the students really got a good hands-on experience in learning through this lesson. Some things I would have done differently is I could have let the students, if I actually taught this in class, make sure the students passed out like the bags or passed out the papers, or let them be helpers and let them be independent and give them some independence, or to go get their own papers, get somebody to get the dictionary, somebody get the thesauruses, give them different jobs so they can have some independency. But I think that's all for my lesson. That was a little vocabulary lesson for the students, and I hope you like it. Thank you.